welcome to another lecture of the course Aquaculture. Within the major topic of types of farming systems, today we are going to talk about an overview of farming systems and about extensive fish farming system or extensive aquaculture. Farming systems can be categorized, in fact, based on many criteria that you can use. We will discuss in later part. But here in this slide, I have tried to show you the categorization done by FAO. They have categorized fish farming systems as land-based farming systems, where the fish farming is done on the aquatic bodies present on the land. For example, ponds, tanks. So they are categorized as land-based systems or land-based farming systems. Then water-based farming systems. For example, there are large aquatic bodies where fish farming has to be done, and this fish farming practice uh, can be in the form of enclosures, and within those enclosures, fishes can be found. For example, cages, pens. That is categorized under water-based systems. Then recycling systems, and one of the most important examples of recycling systems is the recirculatory system, especially because of the freshwater crisis across the globe. We are more concerned about the wastage of water, so we should do whatever is possible to minimize the waste of fresh water. Then last one is integrated fish farming systems. Here we what we do, we usually integrate culture of fish with some other culture, with some other farming. For example, we can raise ducks or poultry, and we can also go for cattle farming, or there are many other types of we may discuss later. Let's have a brief overview of one by one of these systems. Land-based farming systems, as we have already discussed, that they are done on the aquatic water bodies which are available on land or which are practiced on land. For example, ponds and tanks that I gave you important examples. Ponds, in fact, if you talk about the fish culture practice, the history of fish culture practice, then probably ponds are the oldest or earliest enclosures where fishes could have been kept, could have been raised. And in the land region, if there is some kind of um, small or large depression in the form of ditches or earthen ponds, there fishes could have been raised in the early times. But even now, people in many places, not only in our country but in many parts of the Asia, people are doing uh, culture in ponds, earthen ponds, as well as other tanks. Then flow through systems. Land-based farming systems may also include flow through systems. Here, what we do, the major idea is that water flows from one end of the system and passes from the other end. Using this method, we usually have minimal chances of pollution and minimal chances of oxygen depletion. So this is also used as one of the systems. Here, I have tried to show you. I picked these pictures from the internet. I have given the source. You can go through. There are many pictures. I have randomly selected them. Um, this kind of water body you must have seen in many parts of our country, that where earthen ponds are there, community ponds are there, village ponds are there, and they are basically rain fed, and they get water from all the surroundings, and there may be many kind of fishes depending on what is our objective. that can be raised. Or you can also go for tank culture. There are many variety of tanks, fish tanks available in various shapes and sizes that you can use depending on your objective, what you intend to do, what kind of farming practice, and which fish you wish to raise in and at what intensification. So depending on that, you can use either ponds or tanks. Then that was regarding land-based system. Now water-based system. So the culture system, because there is large water body, and we usually are unable to utilize the very large natural water bodies available for culture practice. So to increase the fish production, if we can utilize part of those large water bodies for culture purpose, then it will be very beneficial, especially in producing more and more fish per unit area. So what we do, we form some kind of enclosure within that large water body in the form of maybe pens or cages or rafts, stock some kind of desirable fish species, whatever we are aiming to culture there, and which are suitable for that particular region in those pens or cages. And ultimately we can get more production. We can control those fishes contained in those enclosures, and ultimately their production can be increased. Pens and cages are in fact enclosed structures. What happens that cages you must have seen, and pens also you must have seen. The difference between the two is that pens are kept in the large water body in such a way that it utilizes the um, bottom of that aquatic system, pond or other large water body. The bottom of that will be utilized in case of pens, but in case of cages, even bottom is enclosed. So and pens are fixed. Cages may be moved from one place to the other. So that is basically, and there may be different kinds of rafts. We also know that float on water surface. So depending on what is our purpose, what kind of fishes we wish to raise in those enclosures, and and what is the characteristic of that aquatic water body, depending on many factors, abiotic and biotic factors, we have to decide which type of farming system we have to select. Again here, I have tried to show you, just to show you that these are the example of cages and these are the example of pens, as we have got this information from this source. So again, I should say I'm not endorsing any of the companies, any of the brands, or any other aspects. Just randomly, I have taken these pictures for academic purpose, just to show you how cages or pens look like. There are many variations, of course, in these structures also. Now we have recycling systems, as you have seen in the categorization of the FAO. And recycling, in fact, recirculation aquaculture is essentially a technology for farming fish or other aquatic organisms by reusing the water in the production. As I told you, that this is one of the major concerns in fish culture, that especially in freshwater fish culture, that we have to minimize the waste of freshwater, or we have to minimize the use of freshwater in case of fish culture. So what we do, by using the recirculatory system, we can use the same water again and again. In many cases, maybe even up to 99% can be utilized in, on an average, we can say that about 90% or more we can utilize the same water, adopting many of the appropriate methods. Recirculatory aquaculture system, for this it is necessary to treat the water continuously to remove the waste product excreted by the fish and to add oxygen to keep the fish alive and well. In fact, recirculatory aquaculture system has the entire setup to support the oxygen requirement of the fishes raised under RAS, and also to remove the obnoxious gases or the organic load of the system in order to provide the fishes good environment for growth. This is just a setup, again we got from the internet, and this has been just to show you that how recirculatory aquaculture system, again the setup, the design of the setup, there is variety of designs and approaches in order to set up the recirculatory aquaculture system. In fact, it's not necessary that you have to go for circular tanks. You can go for any other shape of tanks. In fact, some of the entrepreneurs, they prefer to have rectangular tanks. So, and usually, and if there is possible, they go for concrete tanks. So they save money in using only one wall between the tanks. So it depends on which place you are doing and how you are doing, and that can be managed. Then we have another farming system, that is integrated fish farming system. Integrated, as I told you earlier also, that here we integrate one type of farming with the fish farming. Now, what are different popular farming practices, like some agricultural activity, vegetables or other such things which can be raised on the dikes of the pond, and then fish farming. Then we can also use livestock. Again, on the dikes, you can have any kind of livestock raised, and the waste material of the livestock can be used as manure for raising food for the fishes. And we have other species also. For example, we can use ducks for integrating with fish culture. In fact, the idea is that the byproducts or waste from one subsystem become the valuable input to another subsystem, and thus ensures the total utilization of land and water resources of the farm, resulting in maximum and diversified farm output with minimum financial and labor costs. For example, this you can understand very well by seeing some of the integrated fish culture examples. Here, many have been, used in just one image. Like this one is paddy cum fish culture, and this one is probably poultry cum fish culture. And this one is duck cum fish culture. Here, what is done, that is very important, especially with the poultry, or we can say duck. We raise a platform. We make a platform just above the water level of the pond, and the bottom of that enclosure where poultry are raised or ducks are raised, that is having some kind of perforations from where the droppings can go directly into the pond. Or if you don't have that provision, even then you can collect the droppings and use them as manure. And then these ducks, what happens, we know that ducks have to pass their most of the daytime in water, so they can catch their food, the aquatic insects and all, from the pond, and they can provide manure. So we use this integrated system in order to raise many type of fishes. In fact, in case of this rice cum fish culture, paddy cum fish culture, what happens, there are certain kind of paddy varieties which require water to be there for almost entire cultivation time. So if water is there, then why not utilize that water for fish production? So there are certain fishes which may require less of dissolved oxygen if that water level is of course not that much as in the pond. So the oxygen level may be limited, may be challenging. So there are certain species, for example, channa, morels, channa punctatus you can take, which require less of dissolved oxygen. They have the ability to utilize the atmospheric oxygen. So such kind of fishes can be stocked in those waters of the paddy field, and by the time paddy is ready to be harvested, you also have fish crop to be harvested. So just don't eat fish, you can eat not only rice crop but fish also. So you get complete meal out of that. Based on the number of species being raised, so that was the categorization provided by FAO, and that we have explained and understood the concepts, basic concepts. So now I told you that there may be different criteria of categorization, and we can categorize by taking any criteria. For example, the number of species being raised, fish farming is of two types, for example, monoculture or polyculture. What happens when we raise only one species of fish in the water body, then it is known as monoculture. In fact, here you can read this mono as monospecies. We culture, in case of monoculture, we raise only one species of fish. So it is monoculture. I am referring to fish. When I'm referring to fish, you can read it as aquatic organism, aquatic animal. So any of the aquatic animal, any of the aquaculture candidate species, if you are raising only one species, then it is monoculture. If you are raising more than one species in the water body, then it will be referred to as polyculture. So that is the basic thing that we should understand. And even if we are raising only one species, there are certain farming systems where we prefer to raise only male or female of that fish species. Why? There are certain obvious reasons for that. For example, and that case is, first let me define that, that will be referred to as monosex culture. If we are using only males or only females of one particular species for culture, then it will be known as monosex culture. Why it is done? There are certain species, for example, tilapia example is given here. There are certain species like tilapia where they are known as prolific breeders. They can breed more than twice or sometimes thrice in a year on their own in the pond. So that becomes very challenging. That means the number is increasing, and so very rapidly, maybe 3 times in a year. So what will happen? There will be intense competition of food and space. When there will be intense competition for food and space, then there will be less of growth. So ultimately, your aquaculture operation may not be economically viable. So we may not be getting the fish of desired marketable size when we are harvesting the pond. So in order to avoid such conditions, what we do, we usually do monosex culture. So the possibility, the problem of basically prolific breeding behavior is removed. So there will be no breeding, and only those will be raised whatever we have stocked. So we know what number we have stocked and how much we have to feed them, and what could be the anticipated growth, and ultimately we get quite good production. And this is very successful in case of tilapia. There are many methods of getting monosex tilapia, so that you can study separately. That maybe genetic engineering, maybe hormonal method, maybe other methods, temperature treatment or something. So that we can discuss. Then we can also categorize. As I told you that categorization depends on what kind of criteria you are selecting. You can categorize. There may be warm water fishes, there may be cold water fishes. If the fishes you are taking are from the colder regions of the country or the world, then they will be categorized as cold water fishes. For example, there are certain species of fishes which are not comfortable for their survival, growth and reproduction when the temperature, water temperature goes below 15 degrees centigrade. Then these kind of fishes are categorized as warm water fishes, and those which are not comfortable in the water temperature beyond 15 degrees centigrade, then they are categorized as cold water fishes. So we know examples of IMC's Indian major carps, Liberohita, Katla Katla, Sirenus mergala. They are warm water species. Cold water species, you must have heard about mahseer, tortor, or Schizosorex or rainbow trout. They are all examples of cold water fishes. Now, fish farming may also be categorized on, as I told you, there are different criteria. I'm not explaining it here more, but I can tell you briefly, fish farming type may also be categorized based on water salinity. We know that broadly there are two types of waters based on salinity. One is fresh water having almost nil salinity, or sometimes you will find 0 to 1 or 2 ppt salinity. Uh, and another type of water is marine water, where we have the open ocean has an average salinity of about 35 ppt. So, and the water body which is having intermediate salinity um, to that of fresh water and marine water, that is referred to as brackish water um, system. So, if the fish is being raised in zero salinity conditions, then it will be known as freshwater aquaculture system. If it is raised into the 35 ppt salinity, it may be referred to as marine water aquaculture system. If it is being raised in intermediate salinity between freshwater and marine water, then it will be referred to as brackish water aquaculture. Now, let's talk a little bit detail of extensive fish farming system. Now, what happens? I can explain you like this: that if you think of extensive fish farming system, what comes in our mind? In India, I think most of you must have seen that all the human settlements, whether you are living in villages or small towns, or even in many of the cities, you will find that there are certain community ponds. In especially in the villages and small towns, you will find community ponds very common. Now, what community ponds serve, they have their own purpose other than the fish culture, but we can use them as fish culture. Their purpose is something different. For example, in case of uh, villages, what I can tell you, that acts as a kind of freshwater reservoir, that water is usually used for irrigating the agricultural fields when it is needed. And that pond is receiving water from some canal which is coming from some river, maybe via reservoir or whatever. Then that community pond, which is available in the villages for storing the fresh water for various purposes, that is utilized by cattle also, that is utilized by for irrigation of agricultural fields and many other purposes. So, if there is large community pond of, say, for example, 1 hectare or 0.5 hectare or 2 hectare, then use that water for some food production also. So, what is done? Sometimes some fish seeds are released into that pond, or sometimes the fish seeds come through the canal which is coming from the reservoir or the river. So, the seeds are stocked, but you don't have to take much care of, in fact no care almost, of that pond. And whatever fishes are there, they will be raised, and they are not sold commercially usually. They are caught for some for local consumption only, for people from the community. So there is low stocking density, very low stocking density. Sometimes in some places the community gets the seed and stocks it purposefully, but even then the stocking density is very low, because you are not going to have extensive management plans. And whatever food requirement of the fish will be, that will be met only through the natural food production. You are not going to provide food from outside, almost no food. Sometimes people may, but very minimal supplement, but that is not the requirement of the system. And natural food production is there, and whatever natural food, fish food is there, the fish will rely on that. Little or no supplementary feeding. As I told you, usually in this system, extensive system, we do not feed from outside. So whatever food is available, and because the stocking density of fish is low, so usually that food is sufficient for raising those fishes. Minimal management required. We usually do not care about the water quality or other things. Even when water level goes down, we don't care. So maybe the fish will be harvested then. And people will capture the fishes and they will consume. So whether in terms of water quality, whether in terms of water quantity, or water level, or feeding, usually we do not take much care. So minimal management is required. So we are not putting any effort in providing the food, in managing the water quality and other things. So of course production cost will be very low. But when production cost is low, but when you are not taking any care, so there will be low yield per hectare. Low yield is also because you have stocked very few or low stocking density of fishes. Examples, here it is written that village ponds, backyard fish ponds, or natural water body. In fact, it's not that every time the pond or aquatic body has to be very small. No, there are many large natural water bodies which are, if not utilized, if they are there for maybe storing the fresh water, or for its use in many other purposes, fresh water or maybe brackish water or what, you can utilize those ponds for extensive fish farming, because here not much management efforts are involved. So this picture was taken from FAO, extensive aquaculture system. But in India, we used to. This is the same picture which I showed you earlier in the lecture. Um, this kind of water body we see most commonly as community ponds in many of our villages and other places where extensive fish culture is also going on. Now, what are different species that can be raised in extensive aquaculture? In fact, depending on what kind of water body you are having, if that is having good oxygen level, low pollution, no major organic load, or depending on the quality of water, the level of water, the area of that aquatic body, and the kind of plankton productivity in that pond, you can select any of the fishes for your purpose. For example, if there is dissolved oxygen and other things are not so problem, then go for carps. They give very good growth. Or you can also, if you do not, intend to put much of care on breeding and getting seeds and other things, then you can take tilapia also, which is prolific breeder. I told you, snakeheads, they may also breed there only. For example, Channa punctatus, if you stock, that can breed, and many other, depending on your area, your locality, the type of candidate species present there, you can select any of them. The only thing will be, whatever species you are selecting, you are not having major management measures. So based on that, that will be extensive type. In brackish water ponds, milkfish, and then mewgills, the mullet, and many other peneus species also being used for extensive culture, and they are quite popular in the coastal areas of our country. The popular species for culture in marine ponds, where marine areas, or where 35 ppt salinity water is used, are usually sea breams, marine shrimps, rabbit fish, and also sea bass, groupers. They are very popular. So the species depends, as I told you, depending on the locality, the environment where you are living. Extensive fish farming, again, this is based on the stocking density and the level of management. Um, um, so extensive farming may also be of, it may be monoculture if you are raising only one species, but if you are not taking much of the management measures, then it will be extensive. So snakeheads, catfish, or whatever. Again, that depends on the selection of these species, depends on uh, your factors that will vary from one place to the other. So, if only one species is being cultured, then it will be monoculture, one species being cultured without much of the management measures at low stocking density with no artificial or supplementary feeding from outside, then it will be monoculture. Polyculture, if we are culturing, we are stocking more than one species. For example, here people in India, they stock Indian major carps in their community ponds, so that is polyculture. And if there are good planktons, they will get moderate to good growth rate of those Indian major carps. And you can have only Indian major carps, or you can also go for exotic carps like grass carp, common carp, bighead carp. You can use all this silver carp. Then we all know that polyculture is more profitable, and it helps us to raise more biomass, produce more fish compared to monoculture, because here we are utilizing all the three niches. For example, surface, katla is surface feeder, rohu is column feeder in the mid zone of the water, and Syrinus myrgala, which is myrgal, or also called nan in some of parts of the country, that is bottom feeder. So that is why we usually go for polyculture. And this is the list which is given, that katla, rohu, myrgal, the IMCs, they may be used. Here you can see that katla is surface feeder and basically feeds on zooplankton. Rohu is column feeder. This is considered omnivorous. Both it can utilize zooplankton as well as phytoplankton. And myrgal is detritivorous, but it can also feed to some of the planktons, especially in the early stages. Exotic carps, silver carp is surface feeder, then grass carp is surface, column, and marginal areas, herbivorous, common carp, bottom feeder. And depending on, if you are going for only 3 species culture of IMCs, and if you wish to include any of these exotic carps, then depending on whether you are going to use surface feeder. Suppose if you are going to use surface feeder, then you will have to decrease the number of surface feeder among the IMCs. So accordingly, we will discuss it in quite detail in polyculture. Thank you so much. That's all in this lecture.